As the space industry continues to evolve, competition for low Earth orbit resources has intensified. China and SpaceX are two prominent players in this race, each vying for dominance in this strategic arena. In this video, we'll examine the various projects and strategies employed by both China and SpaceX to stake their claim in low Earth orbit. China's ambitious space projects. Expanding satellite constellations. China is preparing to send nearly 13,000 satellites into low Earth orbit to directly compete with and monitor SpaceX's Starlink constellations. The project, codenamed GW, is being run by a newly established group called China Satellite Network Group Co. Their goal is to quickly launch a total of 12,992 small satellites into orbit, dwarfing Starlink's current count of around 3,500 satellites, though SpaceX plans to have 12,000 satellites in orbit by 2027 and an eventual total count of 40,000 orbiting devices. China's need to move quickly on this project stems from a desire to prevent Starlink from dominating the low Earth orbit space and preventing other companies or countries from occupying the area. The China Satellite Network Group Co. has also made claims about wanting to be able to track, and even disable, Starlink satellites with their own constellations. Space launch startups. In recent years, several Chinese space launch startups have emerged. Backed by universities and hedge funds. Companies such as OneSpace, X-Space, and LandSpace are developing launch vehicles and rockets to compete with established players like SpaceX and Blue Origin. These companies are leveraging technology and support from China's national space programs, with the goal of eventually developing manned space capsules and more powerful rockets that could directly compete with the likes of SpaceX and Blue Origin. SpaceX's Starlink, a game-changer. Massive satellite constellation. SpaceX's Starlink project aims to put 40,000 satellites into low Earth orbit, creating a massive satellite constellation that will provide global internet coverage. With more than 3,500 satellites already in orbit, SpaceX is well on its way to reaching its goal. The company plans to have 12,000 satellites in orbit by 2027, with an eventual total count of 40,000 devices. Advantages and concerns. The Starlink satellites have the potential to increase internet coverage and communication efficiency around the world. However, they have also raised concerns among astronomers due to their reflectivity, which can interfere with astronomical observations. Additionally, there are concerns over the potential military applications of Starlink satellite constellations, especially in the context of conflicts like the one in Ukraine. SpaceX's dominance in low Earth orbit. SpaceX's rapid deployment of Starlink satellites has led to concerns that the company will dominate low Earth orbit resources, making it difficult for other companies or countries to compete. This has prompted China's aggressive push to launch thousands of satellites of their own to secure a place in low Earth orbit and monitor the positions and behaviors of Starlink satellites. Monitoring and tracking capabilities. China's surveillance efforts. China aims to monitor and potentially disable Starlink satellites with their own constellations. Researchers with the China Satellite Network Group Co. have expressed concern about Starlink satellites' maneuverability, claiming that this ability might be used to target and destroy other objects in space. By launching their own fleet of devices, China hopes to match and counteract that potential. International Anti-Starlink Coalition. To aid in their surveillance efforts, researchers from the Space Engineering University in Beijing have suggested that China start an international anti-Starlink coalition. This coalition could jointly demand that SpaceX make the precise locations of its satellites public knowledge. In the absence of such data, China's best bet for keeping track of Starlink is to get up into orbit themselves with their own satellite constellations. Economic implications of the space race. New drivers of growth. China's investment in space technologies is part of a comprehensive strategy for economic and societal transformation. The country is seeking new drivers of growth, transitioning from an economy reliant on cheap labor and low-end manufacturing to one based on services, innovation, and advanced industrialization. High-tech service enterprises. China's investment in satellite constellations and Earth imaging satellites is aimed at generating vast amounts of data that can be turned into high-tech service enterprises. Companies in the United States, like Planet Labs, Digital Globe, SpaceNo, and Orbital Insights, have already shown how satellite imagery can be processed into meaningful data that can be sold to companies around the world. China aims to become a similar provider of such information, though the level of innovation allowed under the Chinese government's control remains to be seen. Concerns over militarization of space. Starlink's military applications. As concerns over the potential military applications of Starlink satellite constellations continue to rise, Countries like China are seeking to monitor the positions and behaviors of these satellites. The ongoing conflict in Ukraine has only heightened these concerns, with SpaceX's Starlink system being used to provide internet access to Ukrainian forces. China's defensive capabilities. China's push to launch thousands of satellites into low Earth orbit is not only about competing with SpaceX but also about enhancing its surveillance and defensive capabilities. By being able to monitor and potentially disable Starlink satellites, China aims to ensure its own security and maintain a strategic advantage in the increasingly contested domain of space. The race between China and SpaceX for low Earth orbit domination is a fascinating and complex battle with far-reaching implications for the global space industry, national security, and scientific research. As both players continue to invest in and develop new technologies, the future of low Earth orbit competition remains uncertain. However, one thing is clear: the stakes are high, and the outcome will shape the future of space exploration and utilization for years to come. That's it for today. Click here to watch SpaceX vs Blue Origin, the ultimate showdown in the race to space dominance. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe for more videos on interesting topics like this.